Hello once again, Aloha. It's the same day, it's 11:13, today's 21st, actually 26th of November 2012. These are my last days, so I ventured to answer some of the questions. One of them was really regarding this political matters in US. I'm arguing on that and bringing it up, the topics, simply because the life of a lot of people is related to it. I'm not a participant in it, I'm a Canadian, but the matter of the political science and what we could suggest, some kind of a remedy, you know. Sometimes the word of a man from outside, whoever that is, it could actually be effective. So I'm thinking about the usage of these things and the usefulness of it. So that's why I'm making this comment. It might be useful. If it wasn't useful to you at all, well, let it go, you know. It's my loss, not yours. So today I'm going to be talking about fixing the politics in the United States, because it doesn't work. Let's see what the problem, and is there a proposal or a pattern, a more successful pattern that we could really follow. I've always defended that democracy, freedom, you know, of the people to vote and have their own government, if it were to be working, it has to be the way that is in the West. Democracy is not election of one individual or one party with no opposition in it. It has to have all the three elements, including the elections of two opposite powers. And that's happening in the West. But in the US there's a problem, because you have a president, you have Congress, and then you have Senate. It makes sense that Congress and Senate, you know, to be different parties even maybe. Even that is a problem in my opinion. Because if Congress is Republican and Senate is Democrats, they would not accept it. And if they don't accept it, then there's a gridlock. Add to this, president could be from a different party. Now, we have two-party system in the US, but there could be a third one. So you just imagine, there are three different parties, every one of them is claiming a part of the power, and they don't get along as it is right now, therefore things doesn't work. Democracy in Canada, parliamentarian system in Canada, I don't know other places, it perfectly works. Because in here, whichever party that comes up, the members elected in the cities, in the regions, the majority, the majority party would be the governing party, with their leader as the prime minister in Canada, parliamentarian system. In US it is not like this. So this is definitely causing a problem. At least, my opinion is that the president here should be a non-partisan individual. He has to be elected by the people on the merit of his personal achievement. But it should not have affiliation to the political parties. Even if he had before, he has to renounce it and say that clearly, I'm running for president, and I have to deal with the houses that maybe belong to other parties. At least that allows me to be able to work with both of them. But if he's a Democrat, such as President Obama right now, and a Congress which is Republican, they simply will not follow what he says. They won't, just for the political purpose, for exercising the power. It doesn't work, you see. The proper way is the one that is proposed by God through the Baha'i faith, in where the regime and the system of the governance is not really political. It's not simply by the election of the people. People elect within a constitution, the constitution that is coming from infallible source. So Baha'i faith is not even the constitution. It's actually the conscience of the individuals, where they create constitutions based on that. So it's a guideline of daily life. If it is where to be Christians or Muslims, or in case of Mitt Romney, a sect of the Christianity Mormons, well, if that is the conscience of an individual, he would be looking very weird. Because behind his face is always there's something hiding, some secret. This was always on the face, behind the face of Mitt Romney. The whole people would tell me that, as if these guys are hiding something. There's some secret going on, some ritual, some cult. And as Shoghi Effendi says, the private belief and the private things that we do and we hold on to, it manifests itself in manifold directions. So when I talk to people, people say, you know, this is not just case of the Mitt Romney to be Mormons. It was the same case with the Santorum who ran into the election. This man has the conscience of the Christianity Catholic. You see some of the stuff he says, including raping your own daughter, would be a gift from God. As hurtful as it is, he says, we have to accept it. Accepting what? His conscience is ruled by something God has said 2,000 years ago. Without that conscience, collectively, people would not be able to govern. And even they do, it's like a car that drives not in the road, just rides in anywhere. It could at any time fall on the valley, in a ditch, at any situations. It's a random going. No road. Baha'i faith is a road, God has brought. It's very important that has to be governing the mind and the heart of the people. And then those people have to be elected to run the country in 3 different ways. In a Baha'i government, the spiritual affairs are done by the local spiritual and by the local spiritual assemblies, by the national assemblies, and by the Universal House of Justice, which later on they turn into local House of Justice and national houses of justice and Universal House of Justice that we have. Alongside of it, there is an opposition element which have to be there to create the democracy into the religion, which would be the Universal House of Guardianship, which Baha'is at the moment, they don't know what it is. But it does have subsidiary institution at the local and national level. So in every city, there will be a local spiritual assembly and a local house of elders, a national spiritual assembly and national house of elders, which in the course of time, these local spiritual assemblies, they will become local houses of justice and local houses of guardianships. They work together. But all of this series of the election is only for the spiritual affair, to keep the mind and conscience clear. When it comes to the society and the road and economy, Baha'is, they have Baha'i government, which simply, again, is nothing but of the Baha'is that they're governed, their conscience with their own admission to be a Baha'i, with their own willingness to be a Baha'i, by their free will to be a Baha'i, and their conscience, then they create a local national government. But in the national government of the Baha'i is a little bit different from parliamentarian system or even from the from the United States. In the Baha'i faith, we don't believe that a man in a city could possibly have perceived who would be the best to rule the world. It is outside of his scope. He has no idea who are the people in Japan and China and Russia. He would not even know their names. How could he participate in an election of people that does not even know their names? Or just a name to create a government for the world. It has gone further that in the Baha'i faith, people in the cities, they're not able even to elect a national government. They don't know the size of the country and how big it would be and who are the qualified people in there. So Baha'i elections, the government, has 3 levels. Baha'u'llah essentially says that you know the people, or you should at least know the people in your own city, who they are, and then you create a local spiritual assembly or local government. That's a city hall. Then the Baha'is have to elect, or select, some delegates who are the best in finding out on the behalf of the people at the local level who are the best for the national elections. These delegates, this local representative, they would go study on behalf of the public, they have time, to know who are the best in a country to be governing. So the national government is elected not directly by people, but by delegate of the people. In the universal level is the same thing. Again, the national spiritual assemblies, they have themselves delegates that they will choose the universal house of justice, because as working in a national, at the level of national, naturally they know other nationals in the world, and they would know more relevant. So this is what it is. At the moment, when we look at the government of the United States, it's more like a universal government, really. Because we have the city government, county government, and then we have a state government, but then we have federal government. But every states in the United States are just as big as the countries in Europe, and bigger sometimes. California is by far bigger. New York is just as big, as countries in Europe. But people in Italy and England and France, they don't elect a president for Europe. They just elect president for their own country. And their governments, at the national level, they elect a federal government. It's not the case in the US. Even if they want to follow the pattern of Europe, people have to choose the government in New York, and the government of New York, and those state government, they have to elect a federal government. Because it simply is very difficult for the people, with all the advertisement that goes on, to simply have the time and the money and the effort to really study to find out what are these policies put forth by these parties put to be the best. It's really unfair to ask American to honestly choose and elect and select who is better between, let's say, 2 people such as Obama and Mitt Romney. So their selection is very partial. It's not really out of discernment. They have no time for it. They don't know these things. They're workers. But if they had other people, such as their national state government, to do that, of course the governor of New Jersey and New York and California, they have much more power and means to them to know who is better for the country and for their state within the union. So this is why democracy in the US right now, it has a gridlock. It is incumbent upon any president or other party president to seriously think about this. Go a step by step maybe. Let's choose presidents, non-partisan presidents. Number two, I think, as I mentioned before to you, the United States of America, with 200,000 people, is a big chunk. It's by far a big country. How many countries like that are there as big as that? China, India, Russia. This is a big population, a big country, big economy. It resembles very much the world. At least it's a continental government. It's not a national government. After the Second World War, it seems their mission came accomplished. They become useless. Like Western movies, sometimes they have these gunslingers. They come to get rid of the bad elements, and all the bad elements, the criminals are dead and gone, and the gunslingers, they don't want to leave the town. They are new burdens. And especially with the fall of Soviet Union, totally the usage of the federal government of America for the public came to a halt. So what do we do, really? A more gutsy move would be that we stop the federal income tax and call it a state income tax. Let the people of New York pay their income tax to the state of New York or California or Arizona. Then their government at the state level, after using whatever income tax that they have for their affairs, go on and pay the extras to the federal government. So relinquish lots of power, any power, that in US it pertains to daily life of the people, their economy, all to the states, as it was intended really in the Constitution. But it's not very well defined, so argument goes on that. And anything that deals with the outside of the US, foreign affairs, anything that US has to stand within the world, it has to be a federal affair. And then US is more compatible, to let's say Europe. So this is my second, suggestions. Another huge matter to me is that there should have been a code of conduct developed by both this GOP or DNC, the Democratic National, Council, whatever, Committee, and the Republicans. They just sit down together, they create some code of conduct. That in the discussion, people would not go negative, especially if it comes personal. There should be no attack rendered to the other party. The worst that can be done, a question should be asked. Mr. Gingrich should be asked very politely if he had any affair. Question. And if he says no, I do not wish to answer this, the questioner had to let go. It had to be his own choice to discuss it or not to. Because this has got nothing to do, really, with the peoples. But that's not the case right now. This is what happened to Romney. I watched. So, it looks like this. That they're trying to choose the biggest champion in a country, let's say. and they get him in the center, they beat the hell out of him. They literally mutilate him, handicap him, cut him off near death. Then they tell him, okay, now we tested you, you're good. Get on and go fight. Well, the man is already handicapped. This man is being totally destroyed. Now you want him to go to battle? The opposition? I don't know, some of the movies you see early Bedouins, I don't know, from many countries. They have these two rows and the poor warrior has to go through and they bang his head. And the final either the guy dies or some part of him, left over of him, it gets out from the other side. There's nothing left from him. If he would be called winner at that time, okay. But in the US politics, they call him right now eligible to fight. Now you are the qualified fighter. But the man has lost all his power through this crazy questioning and attacking. Nothing was left of him. He then was already lost. Republican, they destroyed him. Gingrich destroyed him. That governor of Texas attacked him. Everybody attacked Mitt Romney. He's not that bad of a man at all. Capable, very. Overconfident for sure. Underestimating for sure. Was as good as Obama? Personally, no. But it was unfair. He entered a very unfair election. Nobody advisor, they told him that if you're entering this politics 2-3 years ago, you should have not said anything about Ohio. You should have not said anything about the immigrants. In Florida, you should have kept quiet about talking about the auto industry in Detroit. He said all of those things without knowing what the future stands. They capitalized on that and they, right there. He sentenced himself to death before even entering the politics. So this code of ethics, in my opinion, have to be developed because it is totally unfair to bring all this kind of things up about a personal affair of a president or a person who wants to become president. I think finally, I make this thing short. Politics is not something I like anyways, because I have to talk about a failing system, that how to make it not to fail. It is doomed to fail, you see, all of this politics. But still, you see, people are suffering, you have to say something at least, to them. Shoaib Effendi says, if people insisting on not accepting the Baha'i faith and they want to become Christians or Muslims, we Baha'is are out to tell them at least what the real Islam is and what the real Christianity is. He said we have not come to destroy the systems. If they're there, let them be. But at least we will give opinion, suggestions to make it better for people. This is not tantamount to my acceptance of these systems. No. The true model of the governance is the Baha'i model, which I've already spoken in my videos before. Anything else is really subservial and irrelevant. I think another thing that could happen in U.S. politics, because it's so much, there's so many things that is hidden, is secretive, it's manipulative. I think it is good that many of these issues to be broadcasted directly to people, unless it's serious to national security of the country is involved or others are involved. But President, when he's speaking about the economy or what he wants to do with his cabinet, let it broadcast it. Let people hear him, but exactly they're talking in the room. More, transparency is required, much more than this, to have the people and the confidence of the people in the government. Because right now, they're voting for the presidency and the election in the United States as if they're voting, as in the TV program, for the best singers, for the best actors. That's really, 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 really a big burden of a judgment on a part of American citizen to choose the person who's going to lead the country. He has to decide what is better for 300 million people. He's not qualified. The system is not transparent enough. It's not cooperative enough. It's not educational enough for him to do it. What we're asking, this is a big burden of questions. How is better for 300 million people? I have to vote too. But if you go with the Baha'i system, we just go do it in the local level when we know people, and let our representative do the state level, national level, and then go to the higher level, them to accept the people, elect the people on the higher level. So then we have relevant people. We get rid of these really funny business it is, isn't it? Well, it's enough said, tiring when I talk about politics. So I conclude this 3 sessions that I wanted to talk a little bit about the US people again, because I may not be around, and these words, it might be useful to certain people. As a human being, I thought to share it, you know, if I'm not around. Somebody, one of you, could do something a little bit, even if it is possible, better for your system, for your life. Especially a state is very, very important, and all the people of the world, they have to seriously and sincerely work to hold it together. All the evidence is 95% is that it's going to fail. But even for that remaining 5%, I will try my best. See you.